Welcome to Dr. Roger and Friends, the bright side of longevity, hosted by three Ps in a podcast, Doc Roger, Teresa, and Danielle. Thanks for joining us for Coffee and Conversation.
Hello, I'm Dr. Roger Landry, and I'm here with my colleagues Teresa and Danielle, and we're here because we're all in this together, and we bring some skills to the table, public health and coaching and positive psychology and mindfulness, and we're here, again, just to help. What I've learned, I've relearned, I learned it a long time ago in medical school, but have since forgotten, is that we're very vulnerable. As humans, we are very vulnerable, that we're not in charge the way we think, and things happen, natural disasters, and things like this. Can you imagine a small virus is basically shutting down the world and bringing us to a halt, all of us with our automobiles and our technology and everything that's happening. Not technology, this kind of technology, this is booming, luckily we have it. But that we are indeed vulnerable, and I think we should be grateful for everything that we do have as humans.
You know, one thing I've learned, and it sounds so simple, and maybe I used to know it, but the power of just picking up the phone and checking in with someone, especially the older adults in my life, who I know are probably far more impacted than I am. And sending a quick text message, I think what I've realized is that people feel so, it just gives people a charge, and they feel thought of and cared about. And that goes such a long way when we are, physically distanced. So that's something that's been top of mind for me.
I have a couple, but the first one that hit me rather forcefully was my lack of flexibility and the need to be more flexible. And I know I'm not the only one, because I've talked to others who, we're planners. I plan my day from 5:30 in the morning to 8 o'clock at night. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this. And then I came into work when all this blew up, and there's this whole new task list, and I'm like, so all my plans basically went out the window, and I had to learn fly by the feet, seat of your pants. So this is the first day I came to work where I'm like, I look at my calendar and I have nothing scheduled, no to-do list on it, and I'm just going to see what happens. And I think maybe that's a good thing, to occasionally have to have that adaptation. So I'm learning to be more flexible.
It is. I remember we say we also give advice, do things that scare you. That probably scares you a little.
You mean like a Facebook Live, Roger?
Yeah, that's right. Well, another thing I've learned, this is a quickie, is how much I touch my face. And but beyond that, it's interesting that I've talked about this many times, that we humans are social creatures, and we banded together because the world was a tough place and it was life-threatening, and we banded together to survive. And here is a very unusual situation where we're under threat and we can't be together the way we normally are as a race. And so how beneficial technology is, but how we are creatively reaching out to each other. I was walking the beach yesterday because there was no one there, and and otherwise I'm staying in. And there were a couple ladies sitting down, and normally you'd maybe not just bow your head a little bit or something, but they were so ready to talk as we were, and it was a nice exchange, from 6 feet apart, with the waves lapping there. It was beautiful. But I think I was with Paula, my wife, and two of them, and all four of us, I think, were enriched by the experience. However seemingly superficial it was very, very at the core of who we are. So I'm reminded who we are as humans.
Good stuff. One thing I've realized, I think many of us are feeling uncomfortable emotions, and we all have our thing that we go to buffer, to avoid feeling uncomfortable. So whatever that is for us, whether it's reaching for a piece of chocolate, or jumping on Netflix, or going on a spending spree on Amazon, or maybe over drinking, whatever the thing is, whatever our go-to is, to avoid feeling uncomfortable. I think in this day and age, that's just going to be amplified so, so much. And if we can only pause when we feel that urge to reach for the thing, whatever the thing is, and instead of quickly reaching for the thing, maybe just feel the feeling for 30 seconds and just sit with that feeling. Invite it in and give it a seat on the couch and just stare it in the face for 30 seconds. Because maybe that feeling isn't as bad as we make it out to be. Maybe we do have enough emotional courage to sit there for 30 seconds and feel that feeling. And you know what? At the end of 30 seconds, maybe you still reach for the thing. And that's okay. There's no judgment. But the question is, can we sit with the feeling and feel the feeling? And if you can do 30 seconds, do you want to do a minute? And maybe eventually you'll want to do 2 minutes or 5 minutes. And eventually maybe you never reach for the thing. But unless we pause, we'll never get there. We'll never find out if that feeling maybe actually is tolerable. And so I think it's a little lesson in emotional courage, and maybe now's the time to try it out.
Great mindfulness tool, just sitting with it. The other one, there's one more that comes to mind in talking to my friends, and I'm really fortunate. I have a number of friends who are now either out of work or their businesses have closed. But instead of wallowing in the fear of what am I going to do, how am I going to pay my mortgage, how am I going to pay my bills, they're doing something really unique. Some of them are pausing to think, you know, I've been wanting to make a career change. I'm not sure that I like the job I have. I've been kind of going through the motions. And so I'm using this time to really figure out what my skills are and what I want. And they're planning a new business to do something different. And those who are in business, who hopefully are temporarily shut down, are thinking, okay, well, now it's a time to plan a strategy for when I'm back in the saddle again, so to speak. What do I do? And I find that inspiring. I like to think that I could adopt that attitude, but to me, I would be fearful. And so I completely admire the fact that they're using this time to find a renewed sense of purpose.
That's marvelous. You know, I think that's I think what we've heard today and what we're all observing is we're different. We're going to be different when this is all over, particularly if we pay attention to what's happening to us. If we just say, oh, woe is me, and then wait for this all to be over and then just resume our life the way it was, I think we will have missed an opportunity to be a better me, to be a better race, to be a better society. So today, we're going to address something that you've probably been thinking about, and maybe it's gotten you a little angry, and that is the behavior of some people during this episode. Now, this is more than an episode, isn't this? This is a historic event. Well, we see people, we see great things happening. We see goodness, we see singing, we see helping, we see the hotel in Ireland who opened their doors for people who needed housing or who were sick and needed a place away from the hospital. A lot of good things happening. And I think that's who we are as humans. We have an inborn in our DNA to be compassionate and empathetic, but we're not always, are we? And we also have a dark side. And unfortunately, we're seeing some of that behavior going on. This is a very historic event. You know, I've lived the longest of these three by a long shot, and I look back on my life, and there was nothing like this. And in fact, although this has happened for the human race, this has not happened for most people who are living right now. The 1918 flu epidemic, where millions died. There aren't people around for that, maybe one or two, but for the most part, people don't remember. We mentioned before World War II, how we all came together, but this thing, where a little virus shuts down our entire globe, and that is historic. So when each of us looks back on that, we're going to remember. We remember where we were when major events hit 2011, the tsunami, all of these things. When we think of this historic event, we're going to say, where was I? But more importantly, how did I respond to this? Did I help? Did I hurt? Was I compassionate? Was I nasty? And at any age, I think this will happen. So I think this is important that we begin to think about our response during all this, which again, overwhelmingly is good. But why don't we address, ladies, this sort of, I'd like to think aberrant behavior, but the dark side behaviors. What do you think, Danielle, about this?
Yeah, I mean, those are some great questions. For me, as I'm seeing what's happening on the news, I think it's a real call for us to develop empathy, both young people and old people. So I'm not saying one or the other, but for example, for young people who think they're invincible, maybe take a step back and think, what if I were high risk? What if I were the one who could potentially get very sick or could potentially die? What would I feel like? I would probably be scared. And if I were scared, what would I do differently? What would my parents, my grandparents, my mentors do to take care of me? And really, step aside and look at it from a bigger perspective.
Personal.
What would I do differently if I were experiencing these things? And I think that's a good way to start developing empathy. And then for our mentors, we need to be role models. People, as kids are growing, as we get older, we learn empathy, and our role models need to be setting a good example. So in short, I think we just need to develop more empathy, and it's a good time to do that. I know Teresa has some ideas too.
Such a great approach. Well, what if we came from the perspective of love and empathy with everything that we do? And it's true that we have no control over this situation, this virus, and we have no control over any other human being, including the ones that we live with, the ones that we're sheltering with, that maybe we are getting reacquainted with. We can't control anyone's behavior. And the degree that we try to, the more frustrated we become, the more unhappy we become, the degree that we let people be however they are choosing to be, the more time and energy we have to spare to manage that which is within our control, which is our own mind, our own thoughts, our own feelings, the results that we get in our life. So my sense is we can't control the people. Let's not try and use that energy for our own benefit to create the results that we want to create during this, as you say, Dr. Roger, unfortunately historic time in our history.
Well, we've all heard the quote, be the change that you want to see in the world. And I think it's time for all of us to do that. What would we like to continue? The good things that we'd like to continue. What do you think, Danielle?
Yeah, so for me, I have developed a greater self-awareness, and I would like to maintain that and improve upon that. So for example, emotions are a little more intense, not like I'm not going crazy. I don't feel like I'm stir crazy or losing my mind or anything, but maybe 3%. I notice when I'm grateful for something, I'm really extra grateful, or I'm savoring things because we've lost so much. So now what we have, I'm like, wow, I really appreciate this in a new way. But also things that were uncomfortable, that maybe annoyed me and I'd sweep under the rug, like, are now almost like a fly that keeps coming back. And I'm like, okay, well, I need to look at this. So it's forced growth. I didn't ask for it, but it's good for me. And so I'd like to maintain that self-awareness. And I'm also aware of the fact that this is a luxury because I'm not in crisis mode. I'm not in survival mode, and people don't have this opportunity. And I wish this opportunity for everyone. So when all this is over, I would like to continue that, personal digging. And I would hope that other people have that opportunity as well. And then collectively, there's one more, the interconnectedness. I think people are learning the us versus them, man versus nature, everyone for themselves is just not working. Like there's never been a time where My survival, your survival depends on us working together. And I don't want, obviously, it to be a survival issue, but just the recognition that we all truly need each other. And I'd like to see that connectedness continue.
You know, something I've appreciated, there certainly is corporate greed, and we hear about it and we focus on it. And yet it's been so nice lately to see all sorts of businesses step up to the plate and create things they don't normally create, and all for the good of our country. And not to say there's not corporate greed, but there's also so much goodness that comes from business. And I love that focus. We can give equal airtime to both, and we should give equal airtime to both. So I've loved seeing businesses step up. And another thing I've loved, and I hope we continue to recognize those efforts even after this, hopefully this time has passed. I also love our recognition of essential workers of all varieties. And, you know, we tend to idolize actors and athletes and people who entertain us. And now we're really starting to recognize the people who are sustaining us. And I love that. I love them in the focus. And I hope that we continue to recognize them in the future, because they really are the ones who feed us and keep us safe and take care of us when we're sick.
Well said also. Well, there are a lot of heroes, and I hope that when this is over, we don't forget those heroes, for sure. I certainly would like, from my medical and sort of global perspective, like to see viral research be right up there in front, because we know now, I think we've been humbled nationally, we've been humbled personally, and we've been humbled globally. Our race has, that we're not in charge and that we are potentially vulnerable. And viruses have seemed to be the most significant threat relative to disease, infectious disease, that we have seen in the last century. So why wouldn't we put more into viral research? And I hope, we haven't been doing it, well, a little, but not as much as we should, an international cooperation, because again, we are all in this together. Viruses don't know borders, and so we need to cooperate and do that research. Again, nationally, I hope that we get a little more humble relative to who we are and our relationship with the earth and with nature. And personally, I'm going to continue, every time I walk fast, drive fast, or do anything, I'm going to say, why? Why are you doing that? You know, maybe you overscheduled and you're late or something, but you know, why? And this, I think the three of us have said something at the core of what we have said, is that this is a time of opportunity. When there's a challenge, something, some people see it as an impediment, as an attack, as a threat, which it is, but others see also that it's an opportunity for personal growth, for national growth, for species growth. And I hope we see that happen after this.
You've been listening to Dr. Roger and Friends, The Bright Side of Longevity. If you like the show, please rate and review, and be sure to click to follow.